Hi, good morning, everybody. I think it's mostly morning since we're on Eastern, and this is mostly Southern Ontario that's chiming into this. I'm Mary Rowe from the Canadian Urban Institute. Really pleased to be able to have a moment together where we can celebrate something positive happening in communities. I know this is a difficult time for so many people across the country and in communities, and we're just having to hang on and see if we can keep putting one foot in front of the other to get through this what we hope is last, touch wood if you've got wood near you, wave. This is a really tremendous initiative, the My Main Street Initiative, and CUI and Edco are really thrilled to be part of it, and just delighted to have Minister Jacek in this portfolio now to be able to celebrate with all of you all the remarkable things that you're doing to continue to animate and support your main streets. It's if we've had 2 years of time to think about the value of things that are right on our doorstep, the way in which the economy is driven by what goes on in our main streets, but also how our sense of experience of living in community is reinforced by what goes on in our main streets, around our main streets. I happen to live on one, that's my bias, and I am so much more aware through COVID of how vitally important these are to the vitality of our communities and to our economic life and to our social life. So I'm coming in from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, First Nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis across what is called Turtle Island. Toronto was covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Anishinaabe nations. And we at CUI have, over the last 22 months, really tried to be as focused as we can on the legacy of exclusion that urbanism has reinforced and how that has affected our Indigenous populations and racialized populations, and how we have to commit to rebuilding and building back differently and better. And this project, this initiative, My Main Street, has been prioritizing equity and making sure that we're reaching communities that have traditionally been excluded or more disadvantaged. And so I think that part of the learning that we're going to pull from this is how do we actually ensure that communities are inclusive and that urbanism is in fact for everyone. And we also know that immigrants are often the people that actually start businesses on main streets. And I know the minister has history in this area about being concerned about this, about how do we make sure that that continues to be an affordable economic opportunity. And so I think this program is really critical to kind of highlighting that and showcasing, as you're going to hear today. And I've just got to say, thanks for that slideshow. I thought it was fabulous, and I hope we'll post that somewhere so people can start to see all the range of imagination and creativity that communities are putting together and municipal governments are supporting with the ambassador program that can happen on your main streets. Like this could be a renaissance moment for what local economies could look like and what the opportunities are. So anyway, you know the drill. I always feel like I don't have to tell many people about Zoom anymore because we live on it. But as you know, you can see us. We can't see or hear you. You've got a chat, which I appreciate people are plugging in, telling us where you're coming in from. Again, important that we have these moments where we feel connected. So really great for you to tell us where you're connecting from. There are some media joining us, and it's important that the media learn about this initiative and help us share the word so people can see all the remarkable things, as I've suggested, that people are doing. So media, please put questions in the chat if you have any, and if you could identify where you're coming in from, which outlet, that would be great too. You can also send questions anytime to info@mymainstreet.ca. Weren't we smart to get that domain, mymainstreet.ca? And we'll also post a recording of this there. So again, as we all know, I hope you'll share it with your colleagues and your friends. Again, just reinforcing that this is a piece of good news. We need some good news. And so these recipients are just a fabulous example. So this is an initiative of FedDev, the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, or FedDev Ontario as we happily call it. And CUI is partnered with the Economic Developers Council of Ontario. And it's really about these two-pronged approaches to supporting what recovery and revitalization of main streets and local businesses need to do and can do to kind of help us build back better and bring people back. So part of it is the Community Activator program, which is supporting local community placemaking projects. You saw some of them highlighted there, events, activities, enhancements, all sorts of policy and capacity building that we think is going to stick. We want this to stick. It's not a one-time thing. It's got to be part of how, the muscles that we're going to grow and continue to support how we do this locally, local vibrancy. And then the Business Accelerator program, which is my colleague Heather, who's leading that, around what Main Street communities can actually be benefited by if they have an ambassador, and how that can be actually implemented by a local municipality. And what are we learning? What's the data that we can get? What's the research that we can get? And all the funding contributions that they can then make to small businesses. And I think, again, one of the sort of important things for us to remember is we can learn a lot. Main Streets were struggling before COVID. They had all sorts of things that were working against them, right? Lots of people who were making purchasing decisions not to support a business next door, but to put an order into who. And now we're in a situation where we can kind of rethink that. So I think this program is a really important model, pilot, example of how resourceful communities can be. And we've seen it all sorts of ways in terms of how people have been improvising, and even with social distancing, even with wearing masks and making sure that we've got good hand hygiene, we can still find ways to be in proximity to one another. We can find ways to support those businesses that have struggled like crazy. And I think it's really important that we continue to imagine new ways, and that we glean as much information as we can about how people want to spend their resources and where the jobs and, of course, housing and other opportunities are along these spines, the hearts of our neighborhoods, which are the main streets. So today we've got Minister Jacek, who's the minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, affectionately known as FedDev. Heather Lalonde, my colleague, who's the CEO at Economic Developers Council of Ontario, who's delivering that Business Accelerator piece. And then we have two recipients, which is fantastic. We've got Yukong Lee, who's the executive director of the Somerset Chinatown BIA. I already told him during the sound check he's making me hungry because he had a wonderful video talking about all the options there in Ottawa. And he's participating in both program streams. And then Sean Dyke, who's from the booming metropolis of St. Thomas, and he's the CEO of, I think, what is one of the first economic development corporations we have in Canada. I think, Sean, am I right? He's leading that in St. Thomas, and I have a lot of affection for St. Thomas because my brother lives there. So you'll see bios in the chat here, and we'll hear from the speakers. We'll take questions from the media, and then any comments that you want to put into the chat, please. And just remember, as we always say in Zoom land, what goes into the chat stays in the chat, so we will see it forever. And so just be thoughtful as you leave those comments. And I'm going to pass now to Minister Jacek. Over to you. Nice to see you, and welcome to your new portfolio. And I'm so glad you're leading this program.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Mary's introduction was wonderfully energetic, and this announcement this morning, I think, is really, really good news. And I will be giving you quite a bit of detail in relation to it. But first, I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you virtually from Holland Landing, Ontario, and that I'm here today on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty of First Nations, Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, Huron-Wendat, and the Métis Nation peoples. It's my pleasure to be with you today as the Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. Je suis très heureuse d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui en tant que ministre responsable de l'Agence fédérale de développement économique pour le Sud de l'Ontario. As Minister, my top priority is to support our businesses and communities while helping to drive green and inclusive economic growth, job creation, and innovation in Southern Ontario. Our main streets are home to many of our small businesses. These businesses attract locals and visitors to our communities and keep our cities and towns thriving. There's no doubt that the past 2 years have been and continue to be challenging for businesses and our communities. Il ne fait aucun doute que les 2 dernières années ont été difficiles pour les entreprises et nos collectivités et qu'ils continuent de l'être. That's why our government is committed to providing relief measures and delivering recovery programming to support our Main Street businesses and their workers. Since the start of the pandemic, the Government of Canada, through FedDev Ontario, has delivered over $500 million through the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. This investment is supporting over 40,000 businesses and organizations to help maintain over 70,000 good jobs in Southern Ontario. In our government's ongoing commitment to support our Main Street businesses and protect jobs in our communities, it's my pleasure to congratulate the first participants of the My Main Street Community Activator and Business Accelerator programs. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour féliciter les premiers candidats retenus dans le cadre des programmes Activateur de la communauté et Accélérateur d'entreprise de ma rue principale. A Government of Canada investment of $23 million has been made to the Economic Developers Council of Ontario and the Canadian Urban Institute as part of the My Main Street initiative. The federal funding is delivered through the Federal Economic Development Agency of Southern Ontario. This important partnership between Mary and Heather and their teams is providing much needed on-the-ground programming to support the recovery and revitalization of our neighborhoods. In fact, their efforts are expected to support over 5,000 businesses and almost 4,500 jobs across the region over the next 2 years. Under the Business Accelerator program, delivered by Edco, 65 Main Street communities across Southern Ontario will receive access to a dedicated Main Street ambassador who will provide participating neighborhoods with resources and strategic business advice. The program will also provide businesses and organizations with non-repayable funding contributions to help update and fill vacant storefronts and boost recovery in their communities. The investment will also be used to reduce barriers faced by underrepresented groups in the community. For example, the community of St. Catharines will work with My Main Street to focus their efforts on diversity and inclusion by providing business development support for new and existing businesses led by members of marginalized groups, while providing related support and training to the larger business community. And downtown Kingston will support entrepreneurs who are new to Canada. Under the Community Activator program delivered by the Canadian Urban Institute, 106 recipients have been selected to participate in programming designed to boost and renew the connection between people and commercial spaces in their neighborhoods. It will do this by supporting activities, events, and local improvements to encourage the return of commercial foot traffic to these neighborhoods when it's safe to do so. For example, communities like the City of Stratford recently received support through this program for their Winter Festival of Lights. Par exemple, des collectivités comme celle de la ville de Stratford ont récemment reçu un soutien dans le cadre de ce programme pour leur Winter Festival of Lights. This is just one example of the types of projects that are being supported. What makes this program so inclusive is that it's supporting communities from all over Southern Ontario, places like Smiths Falls, South Bruce Peninsula, all the way to the town of Essex. So many of the incredible cities and towns in Southern Ontario are taking part. And I'm so pleased to see how many people have been registered for this particular announcement today, including so many of my colleagues from the House of Commons, the members of Parliament that represent so many of these communities. And now I know that we're going to also hear directly from a few of the recipients today, and I really do look forward to hearing their plans. So to Heather, Mary, and the teams delivering My Main Street, your important work is giving our communities and their businesses the tools they need to prepare for a resilient and successful future, while ensuring the vitality of local neighborhoods and the businesses and entrepreneurs that define our communities. I know today's celebration is just the beginning, as we are now accepting applications to provide even more support for communities from this great initiative. So to all the participants, congratulations. I commend you for taking the initiative and for working towards a better future for our main streets in Southern Ontario. Thank you. Merci.
Thanks, Minister. And I appreciate, I've just scanned the chat while you were chatting and see that, as you just suggested, you have colleagues from the federal cabinet who have come into the, and other federal members who have come into the session. I see Ariel from London, who of course we know because she was a city councillor and was on a few city talks with us before. But I also see an honourable member in the provincial government from Bruce Grey, where I used to live in Owen Sound. Great to have them here too. So, I think the great thing about Main Streets is that we all, I lived in New Orleans for a number of years, and they had what we would call medians that run down. Those of you that have been in New Orleans know this. There are medians down some of the main streets, right? There's like a boulevard or something in the middle of the street with the green where people walk their dogs and stuff. And in New Orleans, it's called the neutral ground. It's where people met. It's where they could, because New Orleans has a storied history with a bunch of different groups that tried to settle there over hundreds of years. And I always think of this as streets. Streets are a neutral ground. You know, they are where our lives live, where a big percentage of municipal space is taken up by streets. They're actually public goods. And I appreciate people on the chat also saying it's not just about the street. We get that. My main street is kind of code for the place you go where you get a sense of attachment and belonging and meaning, and you have some kind of an exchange. Could be a cultural exchange, could be a financial exchange, but it's this idea that we do have places that are our places that we collectively share, and they're not partisan, which is tremendous. So really great to have a bunch of different folks on the call today and to talk about this program. I'm going to pass now to my colleague, Heather Lalonde, CEO of Edco, who I always tease because we're always talking about what's going on in Eastern Ontario. She's always reminding me. So Heather, over to you, and you can talk about Edco's sort of experience here and your engagement with the program. Nice to see you.
Well, thank you, Minister Jasek, and thank you, Mary, for the kind introduction. And I'd also like to welcome our virtual audience this morning. We all know how exhausting online events can be, and we really appreciate your participation and excited to share this news. And I'm very excited to know that Minister Jasek has some colleagues online as well, because this is a very important program to help us recover from this terrible pandemic. I'm also coming to you from the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, Mohawk, Haudenosaunee, St. Lawrence, Iroquois, Huron-Wendat, which is a territory covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. As a CEO of Edco, which is the Economic Developers Council of Ontario and the home of My Main Street's local business accelerator, I'm delighted to be here today to welcome 65 My Main Street communities across Southern Ontario. From all regions of Southern Ontario that include urban, rural, and regional, we're looking forward to working with all 65 My Main Street neighborhoods on revitalization through community economic development. We all know economic development agencies in communities are the change makers that work together to grow their economies, and this is the perfect program to support them. Our dedicated My Main Street team received and reviewed close to 100 applications and completed the challenging task of selecting those who can benefit from this unique program in line with our focus, data-driven, and that's really important, the data part. Economic development for the benefit of all the residents. We look for cities and towns that have been most affected by the pandemic and are poised to deploy My Main Street resources to achieve significant impact. We emphasize the importance of diversity and equity to ensure that My Main Street communities are vibrant and inclusive. And we redefine Main Street to include not just the traditional commercial downtown core, but also the smaller cluster of independent businesses that is found in a rural community, and even the podium of a residential or office tower in a suburban community. And as Mary said, I encourage you to visit mymainstreet.ca to see the full list of the communities and to learn more about them. Each My Main Street community through the Business Accelerator program will receive $57,500 to support a dedicated Main Street ambassador. In addition to this, each will receive a detailed community market profile that will identify current gaps and potential opportunities to improve the local retail mix. We want to make sure that those areas are going to ensure success in the future. Importantly, each My Main Street community will also receive an additional $100,000 in the form of $10,000 non-repayable contributions to open or expand local businesses, following customized market research, recommending the most effective way to invest those funds. Overall, some $3.7 million will be provided directly to municipalities, BIAs, and other My Main Street host organizations across the province, and an additional $6.5 million will be received by 650 small local businesses. This quarter alone, we expect to send close to $1 million out to My Main Street communities as they recruit their My Main Street ambassadors to engage with local businesses and entrepreneurs. I'm pleased to report that all the agreements with our Main Street partners are complete and recruitment for ambassadors is ongoing right now. None of this would be possible without the visionary support of the Federal Development Agency of Southern Ontario. We are grateful for our ongoing relationship with Minister Jacek and the very professional and innovative team at FedDev. During these challenging times, their commitment to the health and prosperity of our towns and cities has never wavered. Our My Main Street team has worked extremely hard to roll out the program quickly and to process the overwhelming response to the applications, and I would like to recognize them on behalf of Edco and the My Main Street communities. I'd also like to thank Mary Rowe and her team at CUI by bringing together both the Community Activator program and the Community Business Accelerator program. We recognize that Main Streets are created for and by the people that use them. Similar to, as Mary referred to them, they're the central point where people meet and they shop and they share daily encounters of their lives. As pleased as we are to be introducing and celebrating our 65 My Main Street communities today, we are keenly aware of the many others who could not be included in this cohort. And we really hope that we can extend and expand the program throughout Ontario and beyond. Today, though, allow me to congratulate all 65 My Main Street communities. We look forward to welcoming you and working with you together in the coming year. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. And I just want to reinforce exactly what you were suggesting, that, we used Main Street when we first started using, CUI started a thing called Bring Back Main Street in 2020. And we were using it, as you just suggested, kind of a proxy, because not every Main Street, in fact, part of what we would always want to say, not every Main Street needs to look the same. And sometimes a Main Street is a strip mall, and sometimes it's a four corners, just an intersection, or sometimes it's the back of some kind of a development that ends up becoming the Main Street. So it's really just sort of, as the minister said during the sound check, it's really another way of talking about a hub. It's a community hub of some description where we, as I suggest, find a way to have our needs met and our aspirations met. And I think we have no idea really what the future of Main Streets is going to morph into, right? So I appreciated you signaling that and saying that they look quite different. And in a First Nation, they look quite different too. So, and I think we want to encourage that you as communities, all of you out there that are participating in this, to continue to inform policymakers at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels about what's the kind of Main Street? What is it you want? What do you need there? You need a library? Do you need a drugstore? Do you need a whatever it is? There's just any number of amenities that can start to spread up. I for one, am interested in co-working spaces coming into Main Streets, because I think we want to encourage people to be able to bring their whole life together on a Main Street. So thanks, Heather, for signaling that. We're now going to go to some of our recipients, which is terrific. And I just want to say that, again, when you're putting a comment into the chat, make sure you toggle it to be to everyone so that everyone will see it. So for instance, Nicole Bonder, I see, has been saying, Nicole, you're only sending that to the host and the panelists, so maybe you don't want to send your email to everybody, but if you got a general comment, the question was whether or not the info at My Main Street. Be great if this project broke the internet. That would thrill me, but maybe there's just a little glitch with that email address. So we'll see if we can get that sorted out, and my colleagues are going to try to sort it out in the chat. So if you've got general comments, folks, change your toggle to everyone so that everybody can see them. Okay, so let's hear a little bit about two communities that were really doing this and doing it in interesting ways. First to you, Yukong, who's the ED of the Somerset Chinatown BIA in Ottawa. So let us know what you're up to over there, Yukong, and how are you using the resources that My Main Streets made available to you?
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Honorable Minister Jacek. My name is Yukong Lee, and I am the Executive Director of the Ottawa Somerset Street Chinatown Business Improvement Area. I would like to thank the Federal Development Agency of Southern Ontario, Minister Jacek, and the Economic Developers Council of Ontario and the Canadian Urban Institute for their support. We're excited and thankful that we have been selected for both My Main Street program streams. The Somerset Street Chinatown BIA is a hub for new and established immigrants and small businesses. While rich in cultural heritage, this area has been historically less developed. About 30% of the population in our area are racial minorities. Our neighborhood also includes many individuals who are homeless or living on lower income. Before and during this pandemic, the local businesses and community members have unfortunately been the targets of racism and hate crimes on top of pandemic closures. Prior to the launch of My Main Street program, our board had been planning to contract with a third-party consultant to identify the challenges and opportunities our business communities was facing, and in the longer term scenario, to establish a strategic development plan for Chinatown. We identified the need for extra human and financial resources to explore market research and support our mission to regain vibrancy. But funding restraints did not allow us to move forward, especially when we exempted 100% of the levy in 2020 and 50% of it in 2021 as a support to the badly hit business community. This is one of the many reasons we are so excited to be participating in the My Main Street programs. For the Sunset Street Chinatown BIA, My Main Street programs came at the perfect time. The My Main Street Local Business Accelerator program will help us further identify internal and external barriers, strengths, and weaknesses within our community so we can make informed steps forward. We look forward to working with our My Main Street ambassador to find beneficial ways to uplift the community, both socially and economically. And as part of the Community Activator program, we were fortunate enough to receive support for a few projects in year one. These projects include a citywide youth artist competition focused on indigenous, Asian, and multicultural heritages that reflects the people who call Canada home and aim to promote humanity, racial equality, cultural inclusiveness, and intergenerational connectedness. We also created a series of beautification projects like murals, decals, landscaping, and lightings to raise awareness of Chinatown as a vibrant community and attraction in Ottawa. We have seen that when people work together to improve these places and enhance the public realm, it creates strengthened connections between people and their community, promotes feelings of belonging, and supports economic vibrancy by attracting more visitors. Again, we are thrilled to be participating in this program, and I'd like to invite everyone to come visit Chinatown. Thank you again to My Main Street team. Thank you.
Absolutely, Yukong, and you're raising a very important point that the tensions and pressures of COVID have exacerbated an aspect of an absence of civility in some cases, in terms of people being respectful of the diversity that is Canada and the diversity that we see on our main streets. And so I appreciate you flagging that at the beginning, that there have been incidents, very, very disturbing incidents of this, and that the part of what we have to continue to reinforce, as you suggest, is that main streets are the lifeblood of communities, and they are diverse. And we want them to be as diverse as they possibly can be, because that's what makes neighborhoods unique and interesting. And of course, it's a question of people having a right to be able to experience safety and to be able to have a livelihood in the neighborhoods in which they live. So I think that's really, I appreciate you raised that. And I'm coming to Somerset for sure with Heather. We're going to come and enjoy what's going on there. And thank you for talking about both programs. That's tremendous. So now we're going to swing over to the west. Over to downtown St. Thomas and hear from Sean, who's going to talk to us a little bit about the Economic Development Corporation that St. Thomas set up and how you folks are getting support from My Main Street. So over to you, Sean. Great to have St. Thomas here, and I see there's a bit of sunshine behind you, which is good. Glad there's sunshine in St. Thomas. There isn't so much where I am. Glad there is where you are.
That's just a lighting trick. Thanks, Mary, Heather, and Honorable Mr. Jazik. My name is Sean Dyke, and I am the CEO of the St. Thomas Economic Development Corporation. I really want to thank FedDev Southern Ontario, Minister Jazik, the Economic Developers Council of Ontario, and CUI for the incredible support of the downtowns in St. Thomas and in West Elgin. I also want to just extend some thanks to the My Main Street teams. I know how much work this project has been over the last few months, and It's amazing how fast and how good the response has been for any questions that we've had or any work that we've needed done on that end. And at the risk of sounding a little cliche, over the last decade, our communities here in the Southwestern Ontario have seen the best of times and the worst of times. We were hit hard by the massive global economic downturn over a decade ago. And that was followed by some massive renewed interest and record growth, only to come to this rapid halt with the onset of this pandemic, which slowed a good portion of our growing economic development and cultural growth in our communities here. Historically, St. Thomas has had a low visible minority population, but in the last 5 years, we've seen a more diverse community coming from larger metropolitan areas, and it's changed the face of our community. The main street in St. Thomas has an opportunity to become an even more thriving and engaging place to live, work, and play. And this My Main Street Local Business Accelerator program will be essential to it, finally giving us the tools to do what we need to do to make our communities better. It'll help St. Thomas become a one-of-a-kind destination for tourists and residents that promotes inclusion and diversity. Our Main Street Ambassador, which we start interviews for tomorrow, so we're pretty excited about that, will support many goals for downtown St. Thomas, which will include supporting newcomers in identifying entrepreneurial opportunities in the core. With two prominent main streets in West Lorne and Rodney as well, the West Elgin community has massive potential to become more vibrant with amenity-filled and engaging Main Street areas. These small town main streets are strong in history and have the classic small town Main Street look and feel that creates an ideal place for residents and visitors alike. We're really excited to welcome these ambassadors to our team, to introduce them to our community partners so we can work together to re-energize and rebuild our Main Street business community in West Elgin by creating more community engagement opportunities, both with residents and visitors, and creating and introducing opportunities for local businesses to collaborate with each other, with ourselves, and our friends at Elgin County Economic Development. We're also very fortunate to receive support in year one through the My Main Street Community Activator program, which helped us to continue to create beautiful murals, gateway art, and sculptures located throughout the core of our community. Since June, we've created 11 large-scale murals and 2 sculptures, 8 of these murals creating a trail that celebrates the life of Jumbo the elephant, who was tragically killed in St. Thomas. It's a strange thing to be famous for, but we're getting a ton of traffic for that, so we're going to roll with it. The trail provides an opportunity for both youth and adults to explore the city, as the art goes hand in hand with some other things that we've done, like an augmented reality experience that was funded by a generous contribution from an estate and made possible through some local partners. The impacts of the My Main Street programs are not limited to just the downtown, as it's helped to spur renewed interest in art and culture and prompted the installation of other art prints on the trails in our conservation areas, helping to generate outdoor activities and to draw people to the heart of our communities. This project aims to further put downtown St. Thomas on the map as a destination for arts and culture in a sustainable way for years to come. Now, with over 30 murals and 4 large sculptures installed in the city, we're seeing a great deal of new traffic. We've worked closely with groups from a variety of backgrounds, including representation from newcomers, local Indigenous groups, women, and youth, to get feedback and to participate in our programs in a number of ways. As word gets out, artists and art lovers from diverse backgrounds are coming to see what has been done here, and many are asking how they can be involved in sharing their work as well. Thanks to all the support from My Main Street, we're on a roll with this arts project and look forward to carrying the momentum into 2022 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Sean, you know, I'm a London girl, and I have a lot of affection for Jumbo. Just saying, and so I appreciated the chuckle that you had there, but I think, good heavens, like, you know, you've got it in your history, why not use it? And it's part of the lore and the storytelling that we do about communities. And I appreciated you flagging the opportunity for art and culture. As CUI is also involved in the Healthy Communities Initiative, which has been funded through one of the departmental colleagues of the Minister through Infrastructure Canada, and Mr. LeBlanc. And actually, I might suggest my staff, if you could put into the chat the link for the Healthy Communities Initiative, because I know there'll be people on the call that have probably already applied for support for that program as well. And that's about placemaking, and there's lots of art and culture engaged in that. So these are really great ways that the federal government is finding a way to support on the ground innovative activations and direct investment to strengthen these businesses and strengthen these communities, as you suggest. And I agree with you, it's not just downtowns. It has a spillover effect. It goes beyond just the main streets, and it adds, as you suggest, to community vitality and a sense of pride. I'm glad you're proud of Jumbo. So you should be. So anyway, if there are any members of the media that would like to ask the minister a question, please put it in there in the chat. And we'll give the media a minute or two. Not that they're usually slow in asking questions, but if they want to post something, and if not, then we can take any questions that people have, general questions they want to make about the program, just realizing we only have a few more minutes live. And also, I'll just say that There, as we know, I appreciate people who are putting into the chat examples of things that they're doing, because part of what I think this program is about is stimulating us to learn from one another. And you know, what's that expression, Minister? You'll know it. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Like if you hear of a community doing something interesting and you think you can, I mean, not all of you have jumbo, I appreciate. But if you hear of something interesting that's going on that you want to be able to do, that's the whole idea. We're building a kind of community of practice about how we bring back main streets, how we support and animate and encourage the kind of activity, economic activity. So people should by all means throw some stuff into the chat. And we at CUI and Edco are going to continue to run programming just like that slideshow, which was just a little bit of a taste, but for us to continue to highlight how people are trying to do things. And there are a couple of mobilization sessions, as we call them. One's on the 19th, and people will put this into the chat, I hope, which is on how you design for equity and how do you actually put programs together. You know, you've got till the 1st of February to apply, as the minister suggested. One is on the 19th, 2 p.m. ET, Eastern, and there's a community activator session on the 25th at 11. And you can register for both of those at mymainstreet.ca. So are there questions coming in from the media? I'll just look on the chat, and if not, we'll open to any other questions people might have. Yeah, we'll post the slideshow, Connie, so you can see it again and again and play it for your family. So here's a question for you, Heather. What advice would you give someone who's planning to apply for a My Main Street ambassador position? Any wise words from you?
Thanks, Mary. I think the best advice is somebody that's interested in applying for an ambassador position. If they're familiar with the community that they live in, that will give them a huge leg up. If they have experience in dealing with entrepreneurs, or they are a former entrepreneur themselves, that will help. If they have an understanding of data analysis, that will help. But I think the biggest advantage is really wanting to assist your local community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe also define your community as broadly as you can. You know,
Yes.
One of the things that we've been saying through the pandemic is reach out to the unusual suspects. You know, don't stop. I can see Sean nodding there. Don't stop at who you think you would at first think about. What about those folks? What about these kinds of folks? Are there other partners? Are there, for instance, people involved in faith institutions on main streets? Are there folks involved in other public services that are on main streets that might partner with you? Are there businesses that might be 2 or 3 blocks off the main street but might be interested in having a pop-up on a main street, right? We're seeing all this kind of innovative stuff, and I feel that we have to always, you know, Jane Jacobs used to talk about cities, you know, a problem in a city, she said, was work that still needs doing. And so I think there are moments for us, you know, it takes a lot to actually shut down a community. They are very resilient. And so part of it is being adaptive and looking for new opportunities. And I hope that everybody is highlighting the ways that you're doing that. Use space differently. Minister, do you have anything else you want to throw into the mix here before we adjourn?
Well, thank you, Mary. I just want to emphasize the whole aspect of learning from each other in terms of looking for outcomes, seeing what works really well. My constituency office is, of course, on Markham Main Street, the real Markham Main Street. I know there's someone from Unionville on the call, but of course, ours was established in 1825. And it has remained incredibly vibrant with something you just mentioned, actually, with a lot of pop-up activities, closing Markham Main Street for a particular music festival or whatever. And people come in droves. So there's a lot of opportunity. From the point of view of my officials at FedDev, I know that they're very open in terms of assisting people to navigate what is out there in terms of assistance for small business in particular. So if there's a business out there that is unsure of what kind of assistance might be available, there is a pathfinding service that actually FedDev does provide, and that might be of assistance to some people.
Great.
Mary, if I can just jump in, the Economic Developers Council of Ontario yesterday just released a report that includes best practices for communities with regards to the impact of COVID-19. And this is as a result of an awards program that we hold. but the adjudicators felt that there were so many excellent best practices as part of that process that we have compiled a white paper on it, and it's available through our website.
Great.
And I would encourage people on this call, if they're interested, to look for a copy of it.
Great, great. Well, I'm conscious the minister has a whole bunch of things that are pressing in on her as we try to navigate the current crises that she and her colleagues are coping with. So I want to just thank her for making time to be part of this announcement. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Yukong. We're coming to St. Thomas. We're to see Dumbo. We're coming to Chinatown in Ottawa. Heather, it's always great to be with you. And all of you, go to mymainstreet.ca, stay in touch with us. And we're just getting rolling here, folks. We just got to keep the momentum. Keep the faith, as we used to say. Just stay steady and support your Main Street in whatever way you can. And we want to thank Fed of Ontario for the support they've been able to provide. Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.